All right, what's going on, guys? Happy Wednesday. All right, let me see, get this up. All right, perfect. All right, so we are basically going to go over a little bit more how to answer some of those questions about weather. All right, that last PowerPoint that I put up on Monday, we're going to kind of continue through that. One of the things that I just want to go over again, and I'll get my head out of the way, is convection currents, right? So that was basically you have that warm air that's rising. Okay. It starts to get cool as it goes up in altitude, and then it goes back down again. Okay. So I got red for warm air, blue for cold air. And basically, this is the whole cycle that makes, thunderstorms, storms in the troposphere where we live. Um, and again, this is all happening on the surface of Earth. But this is also happening underneath the surface, and that's how we have our plate tectonics. So again, the whole reason behind this is the difference in densities, okay? So when we're underground, that's our magma rising, and now when we are above ground, that's the winds, the different air pressures, okay? And remember, it always goes from high to low, all right? And winds are named from the location that is coming from. So if it's a north wind, that means it is heading towards the south. It's coming from the north. Okay. So if I just put, our little compass, right? For the most part, north is up, south, east, west. So if it is a north wind, it is actually going this way because it's coming from the north. If it's a south wind, it's coming this way. Okay. If it's a northwest wind, all right, northwest, it means it's coming from the northwest. All right. So where we live, okay, we know that, Montauk is out east. Okay. If there was a wind coming across, we'd say it's an east wind coming from Montauk to us. All right. So that was just some of the stuff that we're going to be going over. Okay. So what I want you guys to do for this, as soon as I bring up the PowerPoint slide. So hopefully if you have your reference table in front of you, I want you guys to go to page 13 and 14. We're going to be flipping through that for a little bit. Evelyn, this is for 8th graders. 8th graders are at 1, 7th graders are at 12. All right, let's see. Just bear with me one second. All right, so what we're going to start to get into, basically for the whole weather unit, it's looking at weather maps. So in the future, when you're watching the news and you see, them going over how the weather's going to be like the next couple of weeks stuff, and you see all the symbols, you'll be able to understand what they're talking about. So I want you guys to go to page 13. So on page 13, before we start getting into problems, okay, that I'm going to sign later today, I just want you to know is we're going to be converting stuff, okay? So remember, when we're converting temperature or pressure, they're right up here, okay? So there shouldn't be any reason to get it wrong if I tell you to look up, if water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? If you look across, it's also going to tell you that it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. All right. Evelyn, this is for 8th grade. I don't know if you heard me before. Now, if I tell you, that pressure, right? If we have 30.70 inches of pressure. If you go across, it's going to be 1,300 or 1,039. Okay. It's right up there. So that's all you're going to be doing is going back and forth between temperature and pressure. And I'm going to be putting up some of those questions in a second. Okay. Now, what I want you guys to look at is key to weather map symbols. We're only going to go through a little bit of it, right? So that's at the bottom of page 13. Okay. And we're really going to be looking at this guy, the station model explained. So since we're just talking about weather, all right, we are going to show some of the symbols that go with reading the different type of weather and where it comes from, okay? So again, I'm going to keep this up over here. We got our north. Actually, I'm going to put it over here. So we got north, south, west, east, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to do wind speed and direction. This is all we're going to be measuring today, okay? So what happens is when you're looking at a map, all right, which I haven't shown you guys yet, but you're going to have this little dot, okay? And this little dot is going to have a line going out of it. And then it could have something like this, okay? So all that this is telling you right now, all right, is that it's a station model, okay? Basically, there's a station over here, and it's reading what the temperature or the pressure is or the wind speed in this area, okay? Or where it's coming from. So really quick, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put one circle right here, all right? So when it's like this, when it's just one dot, that means it's calm, okay? Now, if it's a circle, okay, and let's say the line's going like this, this line indicates that it's a north wind, okay? The wind is coming from the north, all right? Think of it like an arrow, okay? If we were to just look at this, instead of having the circle like an arrow, you'd be saying, all right, the arrow's coming down from the top, so it's a north wind, okay? Now, if I changed it, and now it was still that circle, but it was coming this way, now it's a south wind, okay? Whichever way this arrow is pointing, always think of it like an arrow, okay? Going in one thing. Guys, this is 8th grade stuff. I see a couple of 7th graders sneaking on. Remember, the 7th grade one is at 12. So let's go back to this in a second. Now, if we have this line here, okay, that means it's going this way. So again, we always say that the wind is named after where it's coming from. So if we go by this, it's a northwest wind. It's coming down this way, okay? So if you have a bunch of them all over the place, okay, that means you have a giant wind mass or air mass that's coming down from the northwest. But we're just going to talk about this one station right now, okay? So this gives us the direction. We have a northwest wind. But now we have to figure out, okay, how strong that wind is. Now, when we talk about cars and stuff, we always talk about miles per hour, okay? With relation to that. When we're talking about wind, okay, we actually talk about it in knots, all right? So it's not miles. We don't say, oh, the wind is this many miles per hour. When we're measuring it, okay, we get our readings as knots, okay? So 1 knot is very close to being a mile, okay? It's actually 1.15 miles per hour. All right. So it's not exactly a mile, but 1 knot is it's close. Okay. But when we're talking about wind direction and wind speed, we're always going to say it's in knots. Okay. Especially when we're coming off of one of these stations. Now, right now, if we just had a bunch of little dots like this represents that it's calm. There's no wind movement. But now I'm telling you that it's coming from the northwest. Now, there's a couple of things that get put onto this line that indicate how fast it's going. All right. So without going to this, I'm going to draw it up here. All right. So let's say we get a bunch of these things. Now, if you get a line like this that's not at the end of it, okay, this is 5 knots. So it's going 5 knots, okay? Now, if you get a longer line at the end, that's actually going to be 10 knots, okay? And then the last one, the last kind of symbol that they use is a flag at the end, a triangle, okay? So the triangle, this is 50 knots, okay? So those are the 3 symbols. Now, these 3 symbols can get added up into making basically a higher direction of flow of wind, okay? So what happens is with this, you always want the largest symbol to always be at the end of the arrow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another symbol, okay? Let's say we have it now going like this. So this is going to be a north wind because we're pointing up north. That means it's coming from the north. So it's actually heading this way, right? Because we're pretending this is an arrow. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to put a couple of these symbols. So let's say I put a big line, all right, and a small line. So you get something like this. Now, knowing that these are the 3 symbols, what you're going to do is you're going to count it up. So you got a long line. So you got 10 knots, okay? And now you have a short one. So now you have 5 knots. So if you're looking at this station, you're actually going to see 10 plus 5. So you have 15 knots, okay? And if I ask you which direction is it going, okay, or what kind of wind it is, you're going to say it's a north wind. Okay, so that would be your answer because you count it up. All right, you got a longer line, that's 10. A short one is 5. It's going to be 15 total, and it's going to be a north wind. Okay, so that's all we're looking at there. Now, if you look at the reference table, there's a lot more things that are going on. We're going to go over that on Friday, okay? All I want to do right now is basically just practice the direction, okay, that the wind or the name of the wind and the speed. And it's always going to be in knots when we're reading off of these things. So let's try this again. So let's do, we have here, we got the line here. So now I write something like this, okay? So again, we have ours. Which way is the wind coming from? If we look at our normal compass, right? We got north, south, east, west. So really that arrow is coming from here. Remember, wind is named from the location it's coming from. So this is a west wind. Okay? Now we got to count up how many knots. So we have 2 long, and then we have a shorter one, okay? So we know that the longer ones are going to be 10 knots. So we have 2 of them. So we can do 10 plus 10, all right? And then we also have a short one, so that's 5. So we add those up, okay? And we get 25 knots. In which way is it coming from? It's coming from the west, okay? So let's try something different, okay? Keep this up. You guys can write this down. Let's say we get rid of this. Let's say it's still a west wind, okay? And I just want to show you something when you're writing it, okay? Let's say I could tell you guys, all right, instead you're going to write this down. I want you to write down 10 knots, okay? Now, some things that people do is they say, oh, okay, this is 5 knots, so I'm just going to put 2 of these, okay? You don't want to do that. If you can make it short and sweet, you're going to use the longer one, okay? Because remember, that's 10 knots. Also, if I tell you it's going to be 50 knots, you're not going to write 5 of these. Yes, this does equal 50, but you want it to be short and sweet, okay? So you're going to actually put the symbol of the triangle to represent your 50 knots, okay? You're not going to put 5 of them, okay? Because then what happens is you want to condense this. So let's say I give you this where it has a triangle, then I give you 2 more long lines, okay? You know that that's 50. Then you have another 10. Then you have another 10. Now you have your 70 knots, okay? You don't want to run out of room. So whenever you can condense it into a bigger symbol, that's what you're going to do, okay? So let's try one more. Let's say I give you your symbol, okay? Let's say I don't put anything on it. What's your wind speed going to be? Because when there's no line on it, that means no wind is going. So you're actually going to be 0 knots. It's kind of a trick question, okay? So if you have a dot right like this, and there's no direction of wind speed, okay, that means there's no wind. It means it's very calm. All right, so let's do another one. Let's say we have it like this. So right now, what's the name of our wind? Where is it coming from? North, south, east, or west, right? It's coming from the south, so this is a south wind. All right. Now, I haven't put any symbols up yet. So I'm going to do triangle, long one, and a short one. Okay? So let's say it looks like there's a couple people watching. I want you guys to count it up. What do you guys think? And then I want you to put your answer. Don't be worried about getting it wrong. This is why we're practicing. All right? So if you can see, you got a triangle. You got 2 long ones. Okay? And then you have another one. All right, so you basically look at these lines, these barbs. Perfect. All right, so I see someone put the answer in. So we're going to count it up. We got a triangle, right? So that's 50. Now we got 2 long lines. Okay? And then we got a short one, so that's 5. 50, 60, 70, 75. Okay? And you always got to put our units, 75. And we know that's a south wind. Okay? So I'm going to give you guys one more for practice. Okay? So for this, I want you to tell me what the wind speed is and what the name of it is, okay? So, got this. Got this. All right. I want you to tell me what the wind speed is and where the wind is coming from, okay? And then when you think you have it, put your name or put your answer down. All right, let's say we're going to check it over, okay? So, let's just find the speed first. Okay, so we got two long ones and a short one. Okay, now notice also with this, we always put the longer ones at the end. Okay, the shorter ones are always going to be further up. So we got two of them. So 10, 20, 25. We got 25 knots. Perfect. Okay. Now we just got to get the direction or the name of the wind. Okay. So if we bring this down, right? And this is what you could also do too. You can bring it up right to it. So let's say we got north, we got west, we got east, and we got south. Okay. So if we're looking at this line, which two are they falling in between? Which two directions? South and east, right? So it would be south, east. Okay. Close though. Just remember it's going a little bit in between. So it's going to be southeast. Okay. But if you want to actually put those around it, that would be good. But it gets a little bit confusing when we start putting in a lot of these. Okay. So always remember just to look at the compass. All right. And try to figure out exactly where it is. So let's do one more before we're done. Okay. So I'm going to erase this. Do that. Do that. Let's try that one. Let's get the wind speed and the direction that it's going. Okay. All right, let's say I'm looking right now. It looks so far so good. So we look up, we look at the line. We got a north, east wind. Perfect. And then you said it was 55 knots. So we got our triangle. Good. And I'm glad you didn't get confused because it's a shorter line. So that's 5 knots. So it's going to be 55 knots total. Perfect. All right. So that's basically how to read a bunch of these station models. Okay. Just for the wind barb. All right. Later in the week, we're going to start seeing all the different other things that go with it. But for right now, this is what we're looking at. Okay. So the last thing that I just want to go over is if you go to page 14, okay, going back to planetary wind and moisture belt in the troposphere. Okay. So again, we live in the troposphere. If I ask you basically where we live, okay, that's 41 degrees north latitude. Okay. You're going to be going up here just to go over it again, and it's going to tell you where the wind is coming from. So it's a southwest wind, which means for generally the most part, our wind, okay, we don't know the speed of it, but if it's a southwest, most of ours are going to be coming from this way, okay? It's going to be coming from the southwest across us. So when we look at maps, you'll start to see stuff like this, okay, at different models. So later today, I'm going to post a worksheet where it's basically going to have a bunch of these, and you just have to write down what the wind direction is, okay, and what the speed is in knots, okay? It's not going to ask you to convert them into miles per hour, just know that every time you get an answer, it's always going to be in knots instead of miles. Okay. So that's all I wanted to go over today. Does anyone have any questions before I go? Thoughts, concerns? Let me move back to my chair. But that's all we were doing. I'm just going to be doing this. I'm going to post up a worksheet on that, and then we're going to go from there. Any questions on Google Classroom? Any of the assignments that anyone's having trouble with? All right. Again, if you guys have any questions later on, just shoot me a message on Reminds, Google Classroom, email. Okay. And then if not, you can always just check up on this YouTube video. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later. I'll see you Friday, 1 o'clock.